Good day. Welcome to Boyd's Blue Alpine Freeze Dryer channel. I'm going to do my first real food freeze drying today in my freeze dryer. I've got a large Blue Alpine that holds about 25 pounds of food, and I'm going to do 23 pounds of pre-frozen eggs. I've basically got 12 chickens, 11 chickens, and they've been laying about 10 eggs a day since February. And so we realized in March we were not going to have room in our fridge for all the eggs, because we had at that point like 300 eggs. So I started freeze drying them in little silicone molds, and we've just experimented with different size molds, pre-freezing them, and then pre-froze them, and then stuck the scrambled eggs in a zip or a vacuum sealed bag, and they've been in the freezer since February, March, and April. It's now almost June. Today's June 1st, but on May 30th and 31st I started freeze drying them, and I did run into a few problems, so I'll have to watch the video to figure out what issues I ran into with my first batch of eggs. I will say it was not a problem with the freeze dryer. It was just more of an issue of my inexperience working a freeze dryer. It's the first one I've ever run, and I had some issues. So hopefully you'll learn something today from my freeze drying my eggs, and maybe you'll learn some tips that'll help you. Maybe you can avoid the same mistakes I made. So we started freezing the eggs, and so I've already I've pre-frozen them. So I put them in the freeze dryer trays already, and I already placed them on the tray. But I was told that one thing we wanted to do, because if any water, while I was putting them on the trays, some of the eggs started melting on the edges. So if there's any moisture in there at all when the pump kicks on, the pump will read that and give me a vacuum error. So what we want to do whenever you put items that had been frozen before, just to make sure that it doesn't accidentally get a vacuum error from reading moisture in the machine, one thing you want to do is start the refrigeration for about 20 to 30 minutes before you actually start this. So to do that, you can just go into your settings, and in the settings hit the manual hardware control and turn on the refrigeration. And by hitting the refrigeration cycle, hit it button, push the button, it will turn on the refrigeration, and then that will basically freeze, basically refrigerates it. You can kind of see there's already ice in there. I've been doing this about 20 minutes already, 25 minutes. So basically I'm just running the refrigeration cycle before I actually run the cycle for the eggs. And what that will do is, if there's any moisture on the trays or any of the eggs that may have defrosted while I was loading them onto the trays, if there's any moisture that touched the tray or any place that's not frozen, when it kicks on, it will actually, when it actually turns on the cycle, the vacuum pump, it won't read an error because of the moisture in the machine. So I've had it on for about a half hour. I'm going to go ahead and show you now how to set it up. So because I already pre-froze the items, I'm just going to hit the quick start, and I'm going to skip the freeze cycle because the items are already frozen. So I'm going to skip the freeze cycle. I'm getting a warning here. The warning says vacuum error may occur if cold food is put in warm container. To prevent this, cool the item for 30 minutes, which I've already done that. So I turned my refrigeration system on earlier. I showed you how to do that. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue because the item's already frozen. I've done that. And it's given me 16 hours at 120 degrees. I am going to reduce that temperature a little bit. I'm going to drop my temperature down to about 115. And I'm also going to add an hour. I'm going to push this to 8. Now I'm just going to go to 20 hours. A little over 20 hours just to make sure. I'm not exactly sure how many eggs I've got in there, but it is pretty full. It'll do about 128 eggs per cycle in this large cycle. And I'm pretty sure I've got about 10 dozen in here. So I don't know the exact weight. I did weigh everything before I put it in there, so I'll figure out how much I actually have in there. And based on about 2 ounces per egg, that'll tell me how many eggs I have in there. So now I just need to wait. So that's it. The vacuum is in the on position. I did lock the vacuum seal hose. The ball valve here is in the locked position. One thing that my sister mentioned is when she got her freeze dryer, it took her a long time to figure out what position was in the locked position, what was in the open position. And I kind of laughed because I thought, well, that's just a standard ball valve. She goes, well, what's a ball valve? So I figured I'd go ahead and explain that here. What a ball valve is, there's a little ball inside there with a hole in it. And when you turn this so that line, it goes in the direction of the line, it aligns the hole in the ball with the hole on the end, so it lets the air or the vacuum in and out. When you turn it sideways, that rotates the ball, putting the holes basically aligned with this, which now there's a solid ball in that space there blocking the ball valve. So it prevents the vacuum, or it prevents the air from leaking out. So the locked position is where this is basically going across the length of the hose. When it's going in line with the hose, you're basically aligning the holes in the ball valve to let the air in and out. So yeah, she mentioned that was one of the first problems she ran into, not knowing if it was in locked position or open position. And because it doesn't really say open or closed on the valve itself, I figured I would just explain how a ball valve works, so you'll know if it's in a locked position or open position. So that's how you can tell if the ball valve is locked, and that's how you know that your vacuum seal is actually closed and sealed. So I'm just sticking that back down there, and now I'm just going to give it the 20 hours. I've got a good vacuum seal here. It's already turned the vacuum on because I skipped the free cycle. So I've got a good solid seal on my door. So I'll just check it in about 20 hours, or I might come down in 16 hours and look at the mTORs. If it hits 200 and stays at 200 mTORs, right now it's at 40,000, but when it gets down, when this reads down here at about 200, if it stays at 200 for an hour or two, that tells me that all of the moisture has been sucked out of the food and it's done. So I might come back and check it in 16 hours. I might just let it run the whole 20 hours, and then we'll take it out and make sure everything's dried, and we'll package it up. So I'll talk to you later. So my cycle is complete. I'm guessing the eggs are all dried and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and open them up. So unlock the door and release the valve. So open the valve to let the vacuum out. So there we go. Out goes the vacuum, and the door will open up as soon as the vacuum is gone. And no more vacuum, the door opens up. Now let's check these out, see how my eggs turned out. So the eggs are feeling very dry. As you can see, when I froze these, I basically froze them. I put them into silicone molds that I had and froze them. I wasn't sure if we could just use those like, eggs like that, or if we're going to crush them to powder. So as you can see, some of these eggs, I switched the silicone molds and went from these little tiny ones to one that was 2 inches high. I was told it was a 2-inch high drawer, and with the mold that was 2 inches high plus the thickness of the cookie sheet, a couple of these actually stuck to the drying element on top, so it was kind of hard to get the 3rd and 5th tray out. But everything seems to be dry, everything seems to be working. So now I just need to package these before they start rehydrating. So I'm gonna calculate how much of the dry weight is going to be equal to 1 egg and how much is equal to a dozen eggs, and I'll figure out how I'm going to package them after that. After calculating the weight of the freeze-dried eggs, it turns out to be 6 ounces per dozen of the freeze-dried weight. So that's about ½ ounce per egg. That translates 6 ounces in this case is about 35.5, almost 36 of these flower shapes. So 36 of those is a dozen. That means that what, 3 per egg? Yeah, because 3 times 12 would be a dozen, or 36. So yeah, 3 of these flower shaped pieces will equal 1 egg if we measure them out that way, if they don't crumble up into little pieces. I'll calculate in tablespoons, teaspoons, all that stuff later for my wife, but right now it's 3 eggs, and by weight that would be I don't know, a 1/12 of 36 ounces, so, or 1/12 of 6 ounces, so I'll calculate the weight later. But anyway, that's fun. I've added 6 ounces of freeze-dried egg into the bag, drop in an oxygen absorbing packet, and then I will squeeze as much air out of this as possible. And it's hard to do with the phone in my hand, but I'll put the phone down. Basically just squish as much air out of this as I can get and seal the bag. And once all bags are done, I will go back through and heat seal the seam. So that's 2 bags. Do it. I got 3 more, so let's try this one here. Set it in there. I got bounce on my legs here because I'm trying to hold the camera too. So position it on there, hold it down, count 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a good count of 3. That looks like that's got a good seal. And 2 more. Position this in there. Get it up there and press down. Hold it to the count of about 3, 2, 3, and it looks like that's good. Yeah, that one's definitely got a seal. And the last one. Line it up. Press it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lift it up. I think. Yeah, this is actually sticking there, so it's definitely got a good seal. So that melts the Mylar. So when cleaning the stacking trays, they've got to be very careful because the heating elements are on the bottom and there is wires at the end, so you got to be very careful not to damage this. If you happen to get food stuck to these, because it does sometimes swell, sometimes the food will get stuck to these heating elements, and because you can't take these trays apart without popping off all the rivets, I found a really easy way to do it is like this. If I get my wife to hold my camera here. So basically I've got a lint-free cloth, it's just a ShamWow, and an old wooden spoon. I've got a flat wooden spoon, and wrapping this over once or twice on the end of that spoon, you can then sit this inside the tray, and you can reach at least 1/2 and just very gently, while avoiding these buttons up here for as much as I can so I don't hit the wiring, you can go through here, and if you see a spot, in this case I had some egg stuck to it, you can just kind of work that in and just work one side or the other, kind of come in this side if you need to. And that cleans both the top and bottom of the tray. That's just barely thick enough to make contact on both sides. And if you need to, you can work it in to work off the spot. So just work that in once or twice. Once you're done with that, you can take this out and just kind of work the edges and make sure there's any lint off the inside of the tray, and just kind of flip around. You don't want to stand it on the end because the fan is down here. You don't want to get any water inside that. So you don't want to submerge it, and then just wipe it down with a mild dish soap, just a tiny bit of dish soap and a little bit of water, and then rinse it out and just get another wet ShamWow, or lint-free cloth, and just wipe off any soap you've got. And the food shouldn't be contacting this. The food should be on the stainless steel cooking sheets. So you do want to get it clean, but that's basically, you should never have any food contacting this. It should be, unless it swells up and makes contact, which in this case it did. So that's basically supposed to be done after every time you use the machine, if there's a possibility that food made contact with the tray. So that's it. Thank you for coming to my channel, and if you like this or if you learned something, please subscribe and share it with anybody else that you think might benefit from this. And thank you for joining me.